Today, let's take a look at the Kreg Router Table, stand, router table top, and the fence. Right here, I've got a complete Kreg Router Table. All the parts here, the stand, the tabletop, and the fence are all part of the Kreg router system. I've gone ahead and hung my own router underneath this tabletop. So let's go ahead and check out some of the features that are included in this table, and let's fire it up and make some cuts. The first thing I'm going to do is get my Kreg stand nice and solid on the floor. Right now, it's got a little bit of a wobble to it, so I want to make sure it's nice and solid before I'm doing any operations on here. Now, it's always a good idea to mark your floor where you're going to put the feet. That way, once you've got it nice and solid there and leveled the top, then you're good to go. In case you move it around, you can always get it back in that position. Now, the Kreg stand is pretty cool. It's got these leg extenders, so you can really dial in the height of your top exactly where you want it to be. These extenders have quite a bit of range, so you can get the height exactly where you want. And then, of course, the feet at the bottom can really help you dial in the exact height and also get it nice and solid to the floor. Before we get started, I want to make a quick note about the plate that you'll see in the video. This is a previous style of plate with a reducer ring that has 3 screws for changing out that ring. The new style of plate is functionally exactly the same, except this reducer ring here is removed and changed out with a supplied tool, making it a lot simpler and easier to use. Functionally, in many of the shots in the video, we'll have this plate here, and functionally it's exactly the same as the new one. Where it's important, and I talk about the reducer ring, changing bits, etc., I'll be showing off the new style of plate. The first operation I'm going to go ahead and try on this router table is template routing. So I've got a piece of wood, double stick tape to a template that I roughed out at the bandsaw. Now, what's cool is this router tabletop has a starter pin, and this is key for starting freehand template routing. You want to start against something solid, this pin, then go in the cutter head. Then once you're engaged with the bearing, then you can go ahead and start routing along your template. So I'm going to go ahead and thread in the starter pin into the router insert here. I've got my template router bit positioned at the correct height with the template on top, wood underneath. Here we go. So that was pretty straightforward getting around there. Now, when I first started, I noticed here I didn't keep quite good pressure against the bearing. So there's a couple little ridges here where I pulled away slightly as I was routing there. So I'll just go ahead and run that one more time. Just quickly take care of those little bumps. This all along here is very smooth. Obviously a little burning here on the end grain. That has a lot more to do with the bit than the router table. Otherwise, very smooth operation. Very straightforward operation. I love the starter pin is built into the router plate here. That's a great safety feature. And speaking of safety, let me mention at the top, eye protection and ear protection. Let's go ahead and add the fence and check that out. I'm going to slip the fence here at the back of the table. It just slides over the clamping rail there. Slides on, no problem. And once it's on the clamping rail on the right hand side, you want to go ahead and thread the handle and brass T-nut from below and handle from above into the slot at the other end of the fence. That way you can lock down both the right hand and the left hand side of the fence. Now that I put the fence on, that just took a few seconds. The first thing I want to try here is actually a jointing operation. Because I already have a straight bit set in the router, the instruction manual talks about how to do jointing with this fence. The faces of the fence can move independently, and there's a built-in way of doing this operation. So let's go ahead and try it out. Here at the back of the fence is a built-in storage for these offset rods, one on this side and one on the other. So first I'm just going to go ahead and slide those out. Next I'm going to go ahead and loosen the front face here. These 3 screws will loosen the face here so I can slide it along. I want to loosen these up a little more than just sliding because we're going to put these rods here behind to push this fence out just slightly. Here we are at the end of the fence and I've loosened that face, and now we can slide these rods into a set of offset grooves. There's one for 1/16 of an inch and a set for 32nd. We're going to go ahead and use the 32nd of an inch. So we'll slide in one rod there, other rod in the matching groove here. Now we can lock down the fence and it's pushed out 1/32 of an inch from the other face. I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the other fence face. Again, there are 3 screws along the front for loosening that so I can slide it left and right. And I'm going to get it really close to my bit, you know, leave it away a little bit, but I want it to be pretty tight, both for safety and for support. Go ahead and lock down that fence. Do the same with this outfeed fence. Just back it off, you know, a little bit away from the bit, and then go ahead and lock it down as well. Now that we've installed those rods into the grooves, the whole concept here is that this outfeed face is pushed forward by a 1/32 of an inch compared to the infeed. And we're going to line up our bit with the outfeed side, and so as we bring a piece of wood across here, it's going to slightly hit the bit, that 1/32 of an inch or so, and be flush with the outside so we can get a nice straight edge all the way across our piece of wood. Let's go ahead and try it out. I'm going to go ahead and use a straight edge to tap my fence and line up the bearing on top of my flush trim bit with this outfeed fence. And I can see that it is back, once I've lined it up with the outfeed, it's back a 1/32 of an inch from the infeed side. And that's how much we're going to take off with each pass. Okay, we're set up ready to go. I'm going to slide the guard over my bit, lower it a little bit, and tighten it down with those 2 knobs. That provides some great safety. I've got a piece of wood here that does not have a straight edge, and we're going to go ahead and try this jointing operation to get this edge nice and straight. I've got to say I was actually pretty impressed with that. I wasn't expecting too much, you know, straightening an edge, but it did it really well. You saw this was wavy edge before, and now it is really flat. So if you don't have a way of jointing, getting really straight edges, this is definitely a great setup for doing that. Now, before I forget, I'm going to slide those rods back out from behind this fence face, and then we'll go ahead and try some other operations. I forgot to mention, of course, you want to clamp your fence down at the location you want it, and that is just this simple locking knob right here. Lifts up, allows you to slide it forward and backwards, and then just pops down to lock this end in place. And if you don't lock the other end in place, you can get some pretty serious deflection. This is with one end, the right-hand side locked, the left-hand not, and you can see how much I can push that. So you do want to lock down this knob, and now this end of the fence is nice and tight as well. I now want to go ahead and swap out the straight bit for this panel raising bit. But this bit obviously won't fit through this reducer ring, so we're going to have to swap that out as well. Now the reducer ring on the Kreg router plate swaps out with this easy to use supplied tool. Simply pop it in the holes, twist, and this pops out. You can kind of use the tool to pop it out. There we go. And the reducer ring pops out. The router plate comes with 3 different reducer rings. Got a 1-inch, 1 3/16 inch, and a 2 5/8, and this is a guide bushing size, so that's pretty handy. So I want to use the large one here for this bit to fit in there. But before, I'm going to go ahead and pop that in, but before I do that, let's go ahead and swap out the bit. To swap this bit out, I also need to swap out my collet, so I have to do it at the same time. Now I have a pretty bare bones router here, so I'm going to have to swap it out from under the table, which is pretty annoying, you might say, using a couple of wrenches here, swapping out this bit. This is where something like a Triton router, where you have above the table changes, including bit changes, is really handy. First I'll go ahead and drop the router down as far as it'll go, so that'll help me get My wrenches in there, and then I'll go ahead and swap that bit and the collar. Went ahead, got the bit installed, tightened it up. Now I'll just pop in the larger reducer ring, lock that in place. Now I want to get the height of this bit approximately where I'm looking for my application. Again, I have to do that from below the table, raise it up, get it where I'm looking, and then lock it in. Now that I've got the height that I'm looking for, I need to go ahead and loosen my fences again and slide them out of the way of this bit. It's always a good idea to give your bit a couple of spins to make sure you're not going to hit your fence, and of course do all of this with your router unplugged. Now what I'm going to do is set a 0 setting. I'm going to find exactly where this blade will just be hitting the wood. Bring my ruler up until I'm just hitting that blade here on the table. And then I'll slide my fence forward so it's touching both halves of the fence just where that blade was about to touch, and I'll lock my fence down there. Now that I've set my fence so it'll just be touching that blade, just missing it, there's a handy ruler over here on the right hand side that releases with the thumb screw underneath. So I'll release that, and I can shove the ruler back and forth and set it right on the 0 mark. And now I can use this ruler to get some measurements of how deep I want to make a cut. Now I can loosen my fence up and say I want to go maybe 1/8 of an inch to start. Just set it right there, lock down the right hand side first and then the left hand side. Let's go ahead and get our guard in place, loosen up the knobs, move it over and down, and lock it in there. Now I've also set up my dust collection here. There's a dust collection port here at the back, set up handy. I think it's 1 2 1/4 standard shop vac size, and just put that on there and we'll check out the dust collection. So let's check out the edge. Just put on there, and it's a nice small little chamfer here. Just went in again at 1/8 of an inch. Let's go ahead and move the fence back and take a little bit of a larger pass. I'll go ahead and unlock the fence, and at the other end as well. We'll slide it back, and let's go ahead and line it up maybe on 1/2 an inch. This is a pretty shallow panel raising bit, so we'll go ahead and give that a shot. Locking down both halves of the fence, we're ready to go. Before starting the router, I realized that this bit can't go that deep. I'm going to hit the bearing before I'm hitting the blade. So I need to bring the fence forward just a little bit, and we'll do kind of the max depth that this bit can do, which looks to be around 3/8 of an inch or so at the height that I've got it set. Slide our guard over. Turn on the dust collection, and we're ready to go. So that's a nice pass there, went very smoothly, and here you can see the chamfer that we made there, and that's about 1/2 an inch, 3/8 of an inch or so going down there. Very smooth, easy pass, and very good operation here, very safe with the guard in place, keeping my hands well away from the bit. And as you can see here, really no dust to speak of here in front, all got collected, and that's a pretty good amount of wood that we were taking off there. There's just a few quick operations using the Kreg Router Table. The freehand template routing and throwing on a fence and using the fence a couple of different ways, including a jointing operation. Everything very smooth, the adjustments really straightforward. I really like this top of the Kreg Router Table. It's got this kind of micro dot. It's very slick, and also it's 1 inch thick, so seems like it's going to hold up really well over time, especially with the support system that you put in place during the installation. Fence, very easy to move back and forth, as you saw, locking down at both ends to keep it nice and straight. I definitely recommend going with a router where you can do above the table adjustments. Mine's bare bones, stuff from below. If you have the option for something like a Triton router, which is a great, not too expensive router where you can do adjustments from the top, that's going to be a lifesaver when you start really changing bits, changing heights and stuff like that here at the router table. The dust collection on the fence seemed to work really well, as you saw, pulling a lot of the dust here out the back. But the one thing to note is that there's no dust collection from underneath. It's just an open stand underneath, and definitely had dust falling down below that I didn't show you. There are solutions that you can look at for trying to collect the dust underneath, but here right out of the box, a stand, tabletop, and fence doesn't have a dust collection solution underneath. There's also a handy T-track here in the miter slot and on the fence, so you can use accessories like this feather board and lock them right in that T-track. Another thing I'd look at for this kind of setup is an automatic start or a switch that you can add to the stand. Reaching up underneath for turning the router on and off isn't the easiest thing to do. It's also not the safest thing to do, so you can look for an additional switch that you could mount somewhere on the table, making that a lot easier. Also, you might want to check into something that would auto start your dust collection or your shop vac hooked up to the port. That would be an awesome feature. So all in all, what's not to like about the Kreg Router Table? It's got a very solid, weighty stand. The tabletop itself is also very solid, nice and thick, and has a nice smooth surface. And the fence is really great and has a lot of adjustments for dialing it in exactly where you need. So if you don't have a router table and you're looking at them, this is definitely something to check out.